Jake's presentation will be the tropical grass development pipeline for 2021. Jake works in the product development for tropical and subtropical seeds within the PGG Wrightson team. Jake has a strong understanding of the many market segments with tropical grasses and legumes growing regions of Australia and to a lesser degree overseas. Jake evaluates new and existing material in varied climates, develops an understanding of the strengths and limitations of the species and varieties, and looks for opportunities to place the various products. He also works within the seed production, crop multiplication, grading, seed cleaning of the tropical grasses and legume species within the Wrightson's team. So we'll head forth with Jake's presentation.
Thank you all very much, and thank you very much, Sarah, for inviting me to give some insight to New South Wales and people from southern New South Wales regarding PGG Wrightson's and our tropical sort of program and subtropical program, what we do, where we're at. I will give some insight into a couple of products that are coming through in the next couple of years. Thank you very much, and I will continue. There we go. So PGG, our focus is on the development of proprietary cultivars. So technology delivered in or on seed, IP protection, product adoption information. So what's the importance of a cultivar? What's the importance of a species? How do they fit? Where do they fit into a farming system? Our aim is to increase value captured through the disruptive technologies of what we do. R&D is a key value driver for our particular seed business. New IP and added value is exactly what we base everything on. Our main focus is on conventional breeding in forages, turf and grain to produce market-leading cultivars. We partner with external organisations to leverage our capabilities and resources, as resources is always an issue throughout the world. It's no different with a corporate seed company. We invest in step change technologies, e.g. endophytes and biotechnology to create economic value for farmers. We coordinate activities from Australia, but with a global market face and focus. So Africa, South America, the Australian tropical market, while it's very important for a business like us, it's not the only market which we face and focus on. There's a lot of opportunities for us overseas, especially with seed production. So R&D networks and capabilities, as you can see, we touch and work throughout the world. So PGG Wrightson Seeds partners with leading agricultural research organisations and partnerships in over 30 countries. R&D spend internationally is about 17 million, predominantly on forage-related improvement programs. Royalties received are typically reinvested in R&D to maintain a science base. PGG Wrightson Seeds involvement ensures on-farm relevance during development phase. This has then since been expanded with our company being purchased by DLF Seeds. So we're quite a global company now and a global focus. Just to touch on tropicals now and directly what I'm working with. So my role is a tropical product development manager. I look and evaluate many different species, subspecies, types of material from around the world. So the first thing I'll break down is species fit and origin of material. So we have a wet tropics type materials or dry tropics. The main distinguishing characteristic of these wet and dry tropics is nil frost. So I look for varieties, particularly for different regions where they don't get frost. Then we have our subtropical things, which is moist subtropics, coastal fringe, especially when we're talking southern New South Wales. And then you have your dry subtropics, which is where Sue probably bases a lot of her R&D. So where there's frost or a risk of frost. A lot of the material that I evaluate is collected from around the world. I work with excess Iro plant collectors and things like that, germ banks, all sorts of different groups. I look at where the material was collected. That gives me a very good indication of what it'll do when I bring it over into my environment. Climate conditions at collection sites is absolutely critical for adoption and for fit over here. Soil types, farming systems, more importantly, wildlife species that are grazing on the plants where we select them from, absolutely critical. These are all wild plants. There's been limited breeding done with most of the tropics, unlike the temperate fit. There is some breeding going on. There's a lot of selection work, but it's not true breeding where there's a lot of crossing quite often. Current species focus within the PGG Wrightson brand, Aurocloam, Bisonensis, so they're Sabi grasses, some Digitaria, Ariantha, Paspalum species. That's a very diverse population with many different subspecies in amongst it that I work with. Buffelgrass species, panics. The panics, well, I'm talking about Megathyrus in particular, so that's your Gatton and Greens and Guinea grasses. There's a lot of work going on there. Chloris, Rhodes grasses, and bulrush millets, which is another subspecies. The photo to the left there is one of our Paspalum breeding programs and looking at different material that has a greater tolerance to frost or hard frost, and there's variances in frost too with tropical grasses. The photo to the right is one of our panics, so one of our Guinea grasses in this particular instance. As you can see, it doesn't show a good representative of how big that plant is, but this particular Guinea grass would comfortably stand 3 to 4 metres tall. So the diversity within our population. I'll touch on probably the first product that you would be seeing come through the brands within my company is a product called a Aurocloam, Bisonensis. I'll also touch on very shortly one of my Paspalum sort of interbred hybrids, and then a Digitaria melingiana as well. The photo to the left here is one of the Paspalums, and the photo to the right is the Aurocloam that's we're developing currently. It is a gorgeous plant that produces high volumes of quality feed, as you can see. So something very different. The species fit, so I'll just talk more loosely about the species rather than the true ins and outs of cultivars within this species that are available or not available within the Australian market. So the Sabi grass world, this species is a native to Southern Africa. The material originates from regions of about 600 mils annual rainfall on well-drained soils, does not tolerate flooding or waterlogging. So 600 mils, that's a pretty loose description. Tends to be a split between summer and winter rainfall there too. Mostly occurs in sands and sandy loams, but also on clay loams and red clays. Think Premier Digit. They come from very similar regions. This material can withstand extremely high temperatures, but will also produce some cool season growth if not checked by frost. This material is a high dry matter yielding type. Its reproduction mechanisms are a day neutral, so whenever it's vegetatively growing, it'll be reproductively growing as well. Many genotypes found on soils with very, very low P levels. So the Aurocloam species in particular is very tolerant of low Ps. They can still be productive. They can still be palatable on low P soils. Other species that I work with, they can persist on low P soils, but they're not palatable on low P soils. So it's horses for courses there. Paspalum hybrid. So within the Australian market, people know of Dilatatum, which was introduced to Australia probably about 120 to 130, 40 years ago. Other than Paspalum Dilatatum, there are some true tropicals that were introduced. And then you have things like Heregrasses that were also introduced. So Heregrass is part of the Paspalum family. I work with many different types of Paspalums. This particular material that we're looking at here, this material is an intraspecific hybrid. It's a native to the South Americas. It was bred in Argentina. Used predominantly as a permanent pasture in seasonally poorly drained, low fertility soils. Similar growth habit to Paspalum dilatatum though, which is the interesting side for me. It's also not susceptible to ergot, which is one of the main issues. So horse people get a bit worried about ergot. Occasionally there's some ergot poisonings. The true negative side to the ergot is it reduces seed yields by up to 60%. So therefore it makes it not an economically viable seed crop quite often to harvest or produce seed off. This particular plant is a quantitatively short day flowering response. So as the days are becoming shorter, that's the flowering response. And hence it produces good quality forage over a significantly longer growing season, unlike dilatatum, which as it's vegetatively growing, is reproductively growing shortly afterwards. Optimum temperature ranges for the growth of this plant, you're looking from 9 to 23 degrees Celsius. It does have that out of season growth, which a lot of tropicals don't have. It's a lovely plant, something very different again. I'm working with many different digitarias, but I'll just touch on this particular one. It's a Melinda. This is a stoloniferous, sometimes rhizominous perennial, native to Southern Africa. It's not something that fits the Premier Digit window, so this is a slightly higher rainfall zone, productive under low to medium rainfall conditions, but responds to increased fertility. Mostly an extremely palatable species with no animal toxicity issues whatsoever. Yields 34, collected in a 650 mil rainfall zone, but I would believe because of the rooting habit and growth of this, it would probably fit in a significantly lower rainfall zone. Just these are some of the products and species I've been looking at. I would just like to finish my presentation. I represent, as PGG Wrightson's, numerous brands within our company. So we have PGG Wrightson's, Oswest, Stevens, and I have to acknowledge the parent company, which is DLF Seeds. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thanks, Jake. Our apologies to everyone if that audio was a little bit unstable. I think the internet was a bit overloaded there for a moment. If anyone has a quick question, we're happy to take a few questions. Just pop them in the chat quickly, and we can ask Jake for you on while we've got a few minutes. A question from Charlene: would this fit an irrigation setup? So I'm thinking maybe that might have been the last species there you were talking about.
Yes, it certainly would. Yes.
Yep. Great. Jacob, a question from David: how competitive is Sabi grass?
Extremely competitive. It's very aggressive coming out of winter, quite quick in establishment and development. So yeah, very aggressive, which is one of the positives to it. I think if anyone's planted many tropical grasses, you know how slow and lack of vigor they are out of the ground, and they tend to get swamped by other grasses or broadleaf weeds. Sabi grass is not one of those. There's no problems with vigor out of the ground.
Great. We're just waiting for a couple more questions to come through, Jake. And you probably covered it there a little bit, but in your experience, what rainfall bands and perhaps altitude have you worked through in your field work for your company?
Rainfall bands.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right. Well, I work from the top of Northern Australia down to be honest with you, even some of these plants are actually grown in Tasmania. So if that's of any indication for you, and everywhere in between.
Yep, no worries. A question from Suze. Paspalum has an optimum temperature of 6 to 23 degrees C. Is this a daily average?
Yes, it would be with minimums of 6 degrees during the night, Sue. Generally, many of our tropical grasses and legumes too, when you get minimum temperatures during the day, or even at night, I should say, when they start to get around the 6 degrees, that can be a frost event on some of our more true tropical grasses or legumes, to be honest with you.
So those minimums of 6 degrees would start to send them to a dormancy phase?
Yeah, they get frosted off. You get some severe burning at 6. Some true tropicals that are further north, when you get minimum temperatures of 6 degrees, it acts like a frost event.
Right. A question from Lisa. For someone considering a tropical grass, are there any species which could potentially become weeds and start volunteering where it's not sown?
That would be all of them if they set seed, to be honest with you.
Yep. Okay, so they're unmanaged, they could become a weed otherwise.
Yeah.
Yep. Question.
As temperate grasses would be exactly the same.
Yep. A question from Holbrook Landcare. Is there any work being done on increasing leaf to stem ratios in varieties or lengthening vegetative phases?
I would say yes, there is. Yeah, that's hence looking at paspalums that have a short day flowering response and things like that. That's where it fits.
Great. Question from Rowan. Do you see the fit for the paspalum hybrid species being in mixed or as a straight stand?
Probably a mixed stand, to be honest with you. Once again, it depends on the farming system. Paspalums tend to dominate one way or another anyway. So while it might be put into a mixed stand, there's not too many paspalum pastures I've seen after 5 years that weren't dominated by paspalums when they're grown. But then again, that makes grazing management easier because you're managing a pasture for a particular species that's within it.
Yep. Just a further one on that. Would that dominance of paspalum, is that due to grazing management, or is it just a very competitive plant?
It can be quite often a very competitive plant. It can be root structure, it can be growth habit, it can be seasonal growth curves. So there's a combination of different things. For example, if we talk about dilatatum will become a very dominant pasture species because of its out of season growth and its root structure, and hence it needs to be managed a certain way. It also particularly likes certain parts of a paddock or soil types. But Heregrass, as an example, it becomes dominant over years simply because of its rhizomatous growth habit, and it absolutely dominates the soil.
Okay, great. Another question from David. Looking for a better grass than console lovegrass to compete with spiny burrgrass. Will Sabi grass have a fit here?
It could do, yes. Well, to be honest with you, quite honestly, I've been a pasture agronomist for 20 odd years. You want to have almost given up in the world of grazing to put console lovegrass quite often in country, because once it's in there for life, obviously, and it requires certain management techniques, which is very hard grazing, very, very hard. So yeah, Aurocloam is much more forgiving than that.
Great. And a question from Andrew. Has there been any evaluation of kikuyu cultivars as used in the WA sand plains for New South Wales environments?
I have heard of some work being done with it over the years, but to be honest with you, the biggest commercial restriction with kikuyu is seed production, and there's one family in the world that grows it. And if that one family wanted to do something else, they would be doing something else, but they like what they have. And that is because it is a very hard and very, very difficult and specialised product to produce for seed. With most tropical grasses, and I'm sure Ben's may touch on it, I'm not sure, but tropical seed production is an art form, and there hasn't been over the years a lot of R&D that has gone into it, and that's why we have many of the products we do have. So both, I'm quite sure Barrenberg, as in PGG Wrightson's, and Ben will touch on this, a lot of our time goes into seed production and understanding on how to grow these things, where's best fit to grow them. and then the grading and cleaning of these products hasn't been well done over the last since their development and release in Australia. So that's an ever-going project and program as well within seed companies.
Okay, great, Jake. I might just ask whether Sue Boschma might have another bit of experience in that phase with the kikuyu cultivars.
Yeah, look, we haven't done a lot of work with evaluation of kikuyu. I find it particularly persistent. Look, up here in northern New South Wales, you probably find it in alleys, like waterways and things like that. It's quite effective. But as far as its productivity is concerned, out in the grazing pasture, there's other species that work better for us in our environment. And I think the reason it's been so productive down in, say, Yanco, in that experiment there is that that particular experiment, I don't think has been grazed as, it's sort of like only grazed every, I'm not even sure it's even grazed every 6 weeks. It might actually be like almost once a season, which suits a species like kikuyu. So no, we haven't done a lot of evaluation at all.
Great, thanks, Suze. Well, thank you, Jake, for your input today. That was a great talk, and we might move on